to a new world of gods and monsters.
Welcome to episode 86 of the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman. Joined with me is the... I was going to make a God to my monster joke, but no, it's just my co-host, Brian.
How's it going?
It's going good. I did not want to give either one of us the title of God or monster because either could be problematic.
Probably because you would have you be the god and me be the monster, and you didn't want to, make me feel so bad about it.
Brian, you obviously don't know me. I would be the monster.
You be the Frankenstein.
I would be the Frankenstein. Yes, today me and Brian are just hanging out, just the two of us, kicking it old school, recording this after work like we used to in the first, 20 episodes or so. We used to record these, at 10 o'clock at night, and we're kind of doing that again. And we'll see if we can stay awake. I think we'll be fine. But
we'll be fine. I got other crap I still need to do, so I have to stay awake.
Yeah, we got time. It's just gonna be the two of us. We had a guest lined up. He unfortunately got ill, which happens, and completely understand. So we'll try to reschedule with him at another time. But this movie of topic today was a choice of his, and I'm glad that we still get to cover it, and that is the film from 1998, Gods and Monsters. Mm-hmm. So we will be talking about that as we round out our Pride miniseries for the month of June. This will be our last episode in this miniseries, but I'm not speaking out of turn because we've talked about this before. We're planning on doing this every June, so it'll be back next year with plenty of maybe some returning guests, maybe some new guests, and we're gonna be planning on doing this for a while.
I would like to quick make a note that as I'm mentally trying to think of words not to say, so that the way your drinking game doesn't get people completely drunk.
Yeah, that's fun. So don't mention Fast and the Furious, and don't say and whatnot, Brian.
I guess we'll see.
We'll try.
The funny thing is the Fast and Furious thing is going to be the easiest thing to try to not say.
Brian, what's your favorite movie starring Paul Walker and Vin Diesel?
Guardians of the Galaxy and Varsity Blues.
Not what I was going for, but I'll take it. Should we jump to the news? We actually got some movie news for this week. Should we jump into it? And Brian, you're going to be taking this over. I'm going to throw it off to you with the news.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have a whole lot going on and whatnot, but enough to maybe to the point where it's like, hey, we need to talk about this. One of the biggest things, and funny enough, is that not funny enough, whatever. That we were talking about him last week is that Joel Schumacher passed away at the age of 80. We have to question, what's going to be inscribed on his tombstone. I'm the guy that made Batman and Robin. I don't know. As much as we want to give him crap, he did make good movies throughout his career. Some maybe get a little bit more flack than others, but say for the sake of Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, he wasn't out to make bad Batman movies. He was just out to make his version of Batman, just like Nolan and Tim Burton and all that. So it's sad to say that, that he has since passed away. But, for the sake that it was 80 years old, he did leave a relatively fulfilled life, I think.
Yeah, the first thing that'll pop up in many of the headlines that we saw this week when Joel Schumacher passed away was director of Batman and Robin passes away. And I'm like, yeah, he was the director of Batman and Robin, but he was also the director of a few of my favorites in here. And I know, Brian, you have a couple of these. The Lost Boys, a favorite of yours, Flatliners. I love A Time to Kill. He was the director of 8mm. There were so many other things besides the Batman films, which I like Batman Forever, and we talked about that last week before this had even happened. And Batman and Robin's campy fun. We all love it in its own campy way. So.
And that's just it for me. Yeah. Batman and Robin, it by far it's the stepchild to the rest of the Batman movies, but I still enjoy it because of the campiness.
Yeah, he knew what he was trying to set out to do. He was taking the notes from Warner Brothers for it, and yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get if you want a more kid friendly Batman movie to sell toys, you get a costume designer to direct. And I mean, some of the movies that he did costume designing for, The Wiz.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you can see that in many of his other movies, even The Lost Boys. You look at the look of all the vampires and the way they look. I mean, he was a visionary director, that's for sure. I mean, that's thrown out quite a bit, but he definitely was, and he should
We,
be known more than the guy who directed Batman and Robin. Go back and watch some of his other films.
oh yeah, yeah, and I would, preface to say is when we use the word visionary, because that term is used in very different ways depending on the director we're talking about. For the sake of Joel Schumacher, we're talking about the vision, the look, the way he put his movies
Yes.
together is the vision that we speak of, not necessarily the cutting edge technology of James Cameron, because that's a different kind of visionary.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
looking at his films, literally the visuals are usually the thing you think of first. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at 80 years old, he had a pretty full life. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can touch on this too. We're celebrating Pride Month here. He was an openly gay director too,
Mm-hmm.
and one that was during a time again, and we'll talk about it with the main topic today. That's that wasn't always accepted, especially you look at the '80s, especially there was a lot of things going on then, and to be an openly gay director, that's a pretty big thing, and a very good director at that. He was he was one of those guys that you will recognize a Joel Schumacher film no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. Um, Next thing we have on the docket here kind of goes into a nice little segue, if you will, is we're going to stay on that Batman train. Thank you, Joel Schumacher.
I'm so
Uh,
excited to talk about this.
and the part that's funny about this is that I've heard people like, oh, it's attached or whatever. And last I've seen, it's all about what's in talks. Nothing's been
Yes.
confirmed. Is that Michael Keaton is in talks to reprise his role as Batman for the Ezra Miller's Flashpoint Flash movie coming up here in the next couple years. Now, the first thing that I want to at least bring up to this is that they haven't talked about Flashpoint. They haven't at one point I even heard that they dropped the Flashpoint story, uh, and that all of a sudden, just as soon as Michael Keaton is being in talks, all of a sudden it's Flashpoint, 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 and
Even
it's
Ezra Miller, he rewrote the script himself just because he wants this movie to get made.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm all for Michael Keaton coming back into the fold in regards to Flashpoint. Depending on if they do Flashpoint, how are they going to bring him into this? I would be curious as to see if it's just maybe a cameo role in like a bit part if they are going to do Flashpoint or any of the multiverse stuff.
I'll add one thing to that I heard
Yes.
in this whole rumor spectrum. None of this has been confirmed. This is one thing I had heard, along with what his role would be, and that's what they're kind of working out from what I have heard with
Okay.
Keaton. Is that Flashpoint would be his reintroduction as Batman, and he'd have
Hmm.
a mentor role for Ezra Miller's Flash. But this would also sign Keaton to at least a 3-picture deal going forward after Flashpoint for a possible, even they've been talking about he'll pop up in like the Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 if that happens, or he might pop up in another Batman movie, or he might get the dream project of mine is Michael Keaton starring in a Batman Beyond live action movie. So
And and
that's
that
what
would
I've
be
been hearing.
and I would be completely okay. I think Batman Beyond is definitely one that I know for the sake of the Batman fans, they've been yearning for Batman Beyond for years, and I think Keaton, especially in his age now, is primed to
Perfect.
perfect to pick up that role and whatnot. For me, it's DC, it's Warner Brothers. They don't exactly have the cleanest track record for doing what we want them to do. So I mean, I guess we'll see how it is. I heard one of the articles I read too was that the hopes and dreams that if they're getting Michael Keaton, maybe they'll get Michelle Pfeiffer to reprise her role as Catwoman, since you know that she lives at the end of Batman Returns. Where has she been this whole time? That sort of thing.
Yeah,
But
I would love if they picked up, like, let the two Burton ones were the two Burton ones, the two
mhm,
Schumachers were the two Schumachers. Is kind of how I view them still. They
yeah,
have overlapping actors, but it's a very different tonally, and they don't mention some of the characters in the Schumacher films that were in the Keaton ones. So that's the way I would look at it. And if this does come to fruition, I'm going to be, the first person in line to watch Flashpoint.
hmm
But as far as the movie goes, do I think this is going to happen? I mean, until I hear DC and Warner Brothers throw out a picture of Michael Keaton in the bat suit, I don't
until
think it's going to happen. But
until we see the words in production.
yeah, because this movie itself has had how many, like 3 or 4 directors attached, how many writers? Ezra Miller's wrote a version, like. And now with this news, this changes the Flashpoint story dramatically, because then you wouldn't have the Thomas and Martha Wayne dynamic. It would be more of this Bruce stepping in to be some sort of mentor. It would take that out of it. So, yeah, there's a lot of what ifs in this scenario.
Oh, and I completely agree. And that's actually one of the things that I even thought about, is that if they're trying to keep this, is this a reboot of everything, or is this a continuation of the Zack Snyder's built of the DCEU? Because if we are going down that Flashpoint, road and whatnot, I think having Lauren Cohen and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's cameos in Batman v Superman just be completely wasted. Like, that is good, solid talent to
That's
be
that's what he was casting for, though.
right.
Which
And
I'll give Zack Snyder props for that. I don't give him props for a lot of things, but he was thinking ahead in that sense of
mhm.
casting, at least.
Yeah,
But I
you don't put those two familiar
no,
faces, especially for someone like myself who enjoys The Walking Dead, though I'm behind. Um,
you
put
don't
two,
just shoot those two very good actors that
yeah,
everybody knows the faces of. Yeah,
exactly.
but
So I'm hoping maybe we'll hear more and more, and
yeah.
then maybe we're gonna get into because of it being Flashpoint, maybe we are gonna see more universes, if you will, to be able to kind of open that up.
And I think that's a big thing, because I think Marvel and DC are both looking at multiverses now to
hmm
expand what they've created already and give fans more of what they want. And you can alter things that they didn't like. And I think Zack Snyder's director's cut of Justice League, the Snyder cut, is going to be a big indication of where they go forward with the DCEU, because
Yep.
if that's successful and fans are like, yes, this is the Justice League movie we wanted and we love this one, then they're going to go ahead with anything Zack Snyder does going forward, because they're going to give him the keys to the kingdom for maybe Superman, especially Justice League going forward. So I think that's a big indicator of where they go, and I see that that'll definitely happen before this Flashpoint movie does, and that could be a big indication of where the DCEU and especially Ezra Miller's Flash goes forward.
All I know is that they got to jump on some sort of get something going. And I realize that COVID has kind of really put a damper on many things, but Barry Allen is a younger superhero. He's a younger person. Ezra Miller's not getting any younger. Granted, he has a very young look to him, so that works to his advantage. But you're going to get to a certain point where he's going to be like, well, he's too old to play the Flash. Now we got to recast him on top of it. So it's like they need to get going with this if they plan on getting a Flash movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so next thing here, and I don't know how I feel about this, just because some things are just not meant to be rebooted, not things are not meant to be remade, and that is looks like Universal is looking to Joseph Kosinski, who is currently in the director seat for Top Gun Maverick, to do a reboot of Twister. And for me personally, I look at this as, hey, you know what? There's certain, maybe I call it, maybe there's certain Bill Paxton movies that maybe you should just leave them alone. Number one, Twister is a fantastic movie. It doesn't need to be rebooted. It has a great cast. It's a great movie overall. Uh, do we need a reboot to Twister?
I Do we need one? No. Do we ever need one? No. But if they have, there's I'm of two minds of this. One, we'll still have the Bill Paxton version. It'll always remain a classic, especially, I think every house in the Midwest owns a copy of Twister.
I don't. I'll
What,
admit it. I don't.
what are you doing?
I know.
But
I mean, especially Philip Seymour Hoffman, you can't. How are you going to replicate that?
that's where I think going forward. So my whole thoughts on reboots and remakes is, yeah, do it if you have something interesting to do, because we'll always have the original. It doesn't change the original at all.
True.
With this, looking at Joseph Kaczynski's track record and who he's been teaming up with, I think Tom Cruise is going to be in this movie.
Right.
I don't see it happening without him, because he directed him in Oblivion. He got him for Top Gun Maverick. There's a couple directors in there that, including Christopher McQuarrie, that Tom Cruise plucks out and says, "You're my guy to direct while I'm on set," aka I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You can take care of everybody else. But
right.
Can you imagine Tom Cruise in a Twister movie?
Well, I got to think about this, and maybe I'm just I haven't this just came off the top of my head, and I don't know I don't know for sure just because I'm not thinking about it. Tom Cruise, do we have any like natural disaster movies that he's done? Like, is this part of his bucket list?
I mean, natural disasters. I mean, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
I mean,
War of the Worlds would be the closest thing I can think of, but that's an alien invasion. But
right. But yeah, it's like, well, it's not like Tom Cruise hasn't, check off the box of which movie can I redo, aka, War of the Worlds. But yeah, for like natural disasters, your hurricane movies, your Twister movies, your Deep Impacts, Armageddon, whereas he's like, I need to have that in my my filmography. So maybe he's just like, well, hey, Twister sounds good.
I can. The last thought I have on this is what I picture the final shot of the trailer being, which is a tornado, large tornado in the background with things flying in the air and Tom Cruise just running. That's the final shot of the trailer. And boom, smash cut, Twister.
As he's running away, as he's running away from the tornado.
Yes.
He's
just him on the roads, just doing the Tom Cruise run with a giant ass tornado behind him.
For as much as Tom Cruise gets crap about the fact that he runs and everything, how has he not been the $6 million man?
Just wait for it, Brian. Just wait for it.
Tom Cruise, $6 million man.
$6 billion man, maybe.
Oh, that's true. He's got to add that zero.
He's got
three of them.
He's got some of that moolah.
Mm-hmm. All right. One of the other things that we actually came across to segue into franchises, if you will, is Margot Robbie. Looks like she's been in talks with Disney to be in her spin-off version of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, my initial thought is, now this is completely separate from the reboot, sequel, whatever they're working on, sans Johnny Depp. This is something completely separate from that. But my thought is, Margot Robbie as a pirate, just tell me when I need to show up. I want to see Margot Robbie as a pirate now.
I don't have any opinions, either good or bad, on this. I've seen the first Pirates, and I'm like, yeah, that was good. And I have no interest to watch any of the other ones. I have no interest in watching the spinoff. I have little interest besides, I wouldn't mind seeing Margot Robbie as a pirate. But
that's where I'm going with it, because I'll even tell you that I never even saw the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie. The fact that they got as many movies out of a theme park ride legit amazes me.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in, like, it's one of those things that outside of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, it's kind of that little like genre, if you will, of film that we don't really get to see. For
this
and like pirate movie.
Yeah, this and like westerns have kind of gone to the wayside. We obviously get more westerns because they're a little cheaper than shooting a movie on sea or finding a large enough soundstage to do it on. So that's where I would need to see a trailer first, see who's attached to direct. I know the writer attached is her writer from Birds of Prey. Mm-hmm. So I'm more interested to see who's going to be directing this and what direction this movie goes when a trailer finally comes out for it.
Directed by Kevin Costner, aka Waterworld 2.
I'm in.
All right. So you actually put this in here just a
Yes.
few minutes ago, and I didn't even hear anything about this here. I don't know what I think about this, but her name seems to pop up all the time. Um, she even does game shows lately.
Oh
And
boy.
that, oh yeah, she does a remake of Press Your Luck for television. And that is Elizabeth Banks as Miss Frizzle for the Magic School Bus live action film. Why do we need a live action magical school bus film?
I'm
Why?
I grew up on Magic School Bus. I watched this quite a bit as a kid. Um, but do I need Elizabeth Banks in it? That's a different question. I mean, I'm all for a live action version of this, giving kids a new version of Magic School Bus, because I believe there hasn't been anything since that original series, which was like late 90s, early 2000s. And
I would check, and I only say that because somehow, some way, some form, my kids found Magic School Bus on Netflix and have been watching it as early as today.
maybe there was a new thing. Magic School Bus rides again. There it is.
Yeah. And what is that dated?
Two seasons, which is I believe it is ongoing right now on Netflix. Netflix
Oh,
original.
so there you go. So maybe it turns into a live action Netflix film for the
I
sake of maybe.
That's the best place for it. I don't see this happening in theaters now. Yeah, that's the best place to go for this with this movie. Kate McKinnon voices Miss Frizzle in that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like Kate McKinnon, so
Yeah.
I think that makes perfect sense. But yeah,
I'm on the same boat with her and Elizabeth Banks. It depends on the movie, and more often than not, I'm not on board with it. But yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Banks is she's really getting her name out there. She's been attached to like everything. She's
written
trying her
written and directed and produced
and
live action
starring.
Magical School Bus.
I mean, that's where I was going with it. I'm like, I could see her stepping into the director's chair for this too. So, again. I want to see a trailer first. I want to see what the tone is. Obviously, it's going to be a kids movie, so yeah. I mean, why not? Just throw it on
Yeah,
Netflix.
yeah. It just if this actually comes to fruition, yes, it just needs to be in Netflix or in like an Amazon Prime, some streaming service, something
Yeah.
that we're. I agree with you. I can't picture this being a movie where it would go to theaters and make a buttload of money.
No.
Again, maybe we turn into the whole we eat our words, aka Sonic style, because we get that trailer and we're like, okay, we see where this is going.
Yeah.
But until that happens, it's a dumpster fire waiting to be lit.
This is just it's a very niche thing, and having you say and looking up that there's a Netflix series and that's what kids are watching now. I think that's kind of the best home for this.
Yes, definitely.
All
And
right.
just for Blake, whatnot.
And whatnot. Uh, yeah, is that all we got? That's all we got for news, right?
That's all we got. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump to coming soon then. You can check out our coming soon article on backlot605.com each and every week, giving the latest movies that are coming to, select theaters. I mean, we didn't touch on that news because movies are just getting pushed back nonstop and everything
Yeah.
got pushed back again. So
Look at Bill Ted. It moved up a week and now got pushed back like 3 weeks or something like that. At this point, right now, until things actually start showing up,
I don't think we're going to be in the theaters until September, October at the earliest.
right?
The first thing we got it's a pretty slow week besides the one big Disney Plus film, which is a geez, a stage stage performance of Hamilton, which has been a long time coming for this movie to finally end up here on Disney Plus, which comes out July 3rd.
Yes, and I will actually. I'm actually really looking forward to this. I have Disney Plus. I would actually tell you it's been probably a little bit since I've even turned on the service to watch something on it. But number one, I enjoy musicals. Number one, number two, this is of got a lot of praise, everything like that. This is one, and it's going to have your like a lot of your original cast members, things like that, because this was filmed over the course of 3 performances 4 years ago. This is back when it first debuted, kind of thing. And I've wanted to see Hamilton. And I think this is to be a good opportunity for anybody who can't either get to where it needs to, where it's being performed, or the fact that they can't get tickets, to be able to find and appreciate and experience this, musical.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. Yeah, I've been waiting to watch Hamilton for a long time. I've been like trying to find like YouTube videos. I'm like, I just want to sit and watch the whole thing. And
Hmm.
finally, now we get it here on Disney Plus. Even better. I think that's a good home for it. And yeah, for people like us who live in South Dakota, we're not ever going to get the chance unless we fly to New York to go watch Hamilton. And right now that's not an option. But to throw it here on Disney, not I don't want to say throw it. But to place it here on Disney Plus, I think that's a
Yes.
great home for it. It's going to get a lot of eyes on it, and even more so, this movie was supposed to get a theatrical release.
Now this is one that I do think, even though it's a musical, even though it's a staged, a staged performance, I do think that if COVID-19 aside, I honestly, I think because of the inability of people to go see the actual live performance, I think this would have actually done very well for Disney at the theater. Uh, even though it's not your typical movie that someone would go see.
Yeah,
But I think that placing it over the 4th of July on Disney Plus, I think is just mainly that perfect fuel for them to be able to get people into using the service.
yeah.
That acceptable, call it that acceptable loss, because the production value of basically filming 3 nights worth of performances and the editing involved. It's not like it cost them a lot of money to make it.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect home for it, like I said, and it's going to get even more eyes on. I mean, I think people would have shown up in theaters for this
Yes.
because everybody knows what Hamilton is, even if they've never seen it. But yeah, now having it on Disney Plus, which pretty much every household in America probably has access to, I think that's a great thing for this, especially during a Fourth of July weekend. Uh, Nothing else new of note is really coming out.
Hmm.
Again, theaters are closed, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good spot to have this movie.
Yep, I would have to concur.
And that's it for coming. No, there's two more things, but who cares? Yeah, the other films coming out here July 3rd, Netflix original film Desperados, stars. How do you say her name?
Nassim Ped. Oh God, goodness
How
gracious!
did, how did
It's Pedrad, I think is what it was. But yeah,
Pedrad?
her first name is Nassim.
Yeah, from SNL fame, Robbie Amell and Anna Camp. It's basically about a woman who sends what a Derek right here, a ferocious email to her new boyfriend, and then heads to Mexico with her friends to delete the email from his phone. Well, hijinks ensue.
Well, I will say this, and why this movie does intrigue me, to at least give it the worthwhile watch, is that I do like Anna Camp. I do like Robbie Amell. I do like Nassim from when she was on SNL. Like,
Hmm.
for the sake of the people that are in this film, and it's just the goofy ass premise that it is. I have watched the trailer for it, and it's one of those things that she thinks that this guy has ghosted her because he won't return the phone calls. She's getting blitzed drunk. Her and the two friends, write up this email, and they're all just throwing all sorts of shit at it, whatever. As soon as they basically hit send, he calls her from the hospital after he was in a massive car accident, and he hasn't been able to call her, and that's why they want to go to Mexico. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, this movie's not for me.
Yeah, but you're a hard sell on comedies. We've had this
Well,
conversation before.
yes and no, but I've seen Road Trip, so I don't need to watch this. and and I like Road
Fine.
Trip, so
Of course you
that's
like Road Trip because it has your favorite ultimate super comedian, Tom Green.
it's got my boy Tom Green in it, obviously.
Blah.
Yeah, so that's how I felt about Desperados. Blah. Uh, the other one that we got on here, Metamorphosis, Shutter original, July 2nd. Demonic possession flick from South Korea. I had a chance to watch the trailer. Looks fine. I'm not rushing out to watch it.
Wow. All I heard was Shutter, Possession, and South Korea, and I figured you'd be
I'm,
all over. I haven't watched the trailer, but just those three things made me go, "Oh, Casey's gonna be all over this."
I'm over possession movies. I'm sick of them. Every horror movie coming out is a possession movie. Change it up a little. I mean, I watched two of the latest Shudder originals, Scare Package, which we do have an interview with one of the film's directors, Aaron B. Kuntz, up now on backlot605.com. Shameless plug. And
Good
that's
call.
that's an horror anthology film, but it's like more horror comedy. That one's really good. It's a lot of fun. And I checked out one that we talked about, I believe, last week, Yummy, the zombie comedy.
Hmm.
It was really fun. It was a lot of fun. It was, I mean, it's the same setup as any other zombie movie, but what set it apart was that it was a fun, like gore effects heavy. But yeah, I'm over possession movies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm checking out Hamilton instead.
Wow. Call me impressed.
Yeah, I'm not always a shill for Shudder. Most of the time I am, but
Most of the time.
all right. So should we jump to our main topic then for today?
Let's give it a go.
All right. Today's main topic is the 1998 biographical drama.
Semi-biographical.
Oh, semi-biographical.
Yeah.
Gods and Monsters.
Yes.
Directed by Bill Condon, starring Ian McKellen, Brendan Fraser, and Lynn Redgrave. So this is like you said, Brian, semi-biographical story of the last couple days of the life of director James Whale, who directed such films as Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Bride of Frankenstein. And basically, the basic setup for this is he has, in his later years in his life, set in the 50s, this movie is, he has suffered a stroke, and he is living in his house by himself with his maid, and he hires a new landscaper who he begins to either become. He is attracted to the man, but he is also seeking kinship with this man, played by Brendan Fraser, playing the fictitious character of Clayton Boone. And yeah, basically they form this relationship and friendship throughout the movie, and yeah, that's kind of the basic setup for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Gods and Monsters. For some reason, I had never watched this movie before until we watched it for today's prep.
Yep.
I,
Same here.
I'm late to the James Whale filmography. I mean, I've seen his four major horror pictures. Have not ventured outside of that yet. I do want to check out some of his other ventures outside of the horror genre. But yeah, I'm very very excited to jump into this movie. Brian, what was your initial thoughts after watching Gods and Monsters?
Well, I would say is it. I when I went into this movie, I hadn't even looked up any sort of like synopsis or anything like that. So I went into this movie completely cold, blind, and whatnot. It was not what I expected. I would certainly say is for the sake of performances all around, and this is saying something because we got Brendan Fraser in this movie. A very good, solid performances out of everybody. The gal who played the maid is fantastic. Ian McKellen crushes it. And the part I think is funny is I'm watching this movie and I was like, you look at Ian McKellen today and you're like, God, he was so young and yet so old at the same time. um, but overall, it was a good film. For me, there's a lot of for the sake of like flashback in memory and stuff that was going on with Whale that really was kind of over the top for me here. I mean, there sometimes it was flashing, just going back and forth, whatever. It seemed a little chaotic at times. But outside of that, I think it was a very well done, very well done movie and very well acted movie, especially.
Yeah, I think this will come as no surprise. I loved this movie. This is my favorite movie that we've done so far this month. I cried at the end. Because I think it also helps that I'm so attached to his previous work, especially Bride of Frankenstein, which also gets me to cry every time I watch that movie. And how thematically this movie is very much a thematic brother to Bride of
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein. Yeah, Ian McKellen he's so good in this movie. He can just conveying this man who has just suffered a stroke, and he's going through a time in his life where he knows the end of his life is near, and he is digging up all these memories that he has just pushed to the side all these years and has never wanted to bring up or explore. And to have Ian McKellen just portray the way he portrays it is so it's such a nuanced performance, but it's also one that just sucks you in with everything that he's doing on screen. And like you said, Brendan Fraser is really good in this movie.
Right?
And like, I mean, we all know Brendan Fraser kind of as the swarmy, cocky guy from like The Mummy, or like the stoner dude from like every late 90s movie that he was in. But yeah, I think he was phenomenal in this movie. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think it helps if you know his filmography, but it's not necessary viewing for this. You might get a little more
Right.
out of it. But yeah, I just loved this movie, and I want to jump into some of the thematic things that I was pulling from this. I don't want to spoil the ending, especially, and we'll get into that.
Really quick here, just for the sake of one thing I at least want to bring into this here, and you may cover this, and I apologize ahead of time, is I think one of the things about Ian McKellen's performance to this film is that there is some linearness, from him to the character and whatnot, because, it's one thing for an actor to play, a gay character and whatnot, but to have an openly gay character, playing, the gay character kind of thing. And I think that I think he himself probably has a little bit of that, parallel, not to say to the point where he's all crazy and everything like that, but there are certain aspects of the new, the things that the mannerisms and things like that he doesn't have to fake. He does, at that point they're going to come all natural.
Yes, he was born to play this role. I mean,
Yes.
people can say that about a lot of movies, but yeah, you can feel he was so connected to playing James Whale in this movie. And like you said, I mean, a little backstory on James Whale: he was an openly gay director in the 30s through the 40s. That is unprecedented for the time, and I mean, it was never like expressed like that. They didn't like push any like gay agenda movies towards him. It was just that's the life he lived, and it was never really covered in the press at all. He was never shy about it, but he was never trying to press any of that. But a lot of the things in his life do come through in his movies, and there is some, I mean, there is many like elements of his own life present, especially him being an out gay man, and his expressions towards religion and life, and all of that is present in many of his movies. And I think this is very much a film he would have very much connected to, and been one where he would have been fully behind this movie, especially some of the themes that this movie goes over. But the first thing I want to talk about, so Ian McKellen, he plays James Whale in this movie towards the end of his life. He is a creepy pervert in this movie, isn't he?
Just a little bit, especially the biggest one that I think that really gives you that feel of, okay, so this is where we're going with this here, is when he's getting interviewed, and playing strip questions. If you want an honest answer, you got to take off a piece of clothing. You're going to start with your shoes and your socks.
Yeah, that's pretty much how the movie opens, is right there. That's in the first 15 minutes of this movie, and you definitely get inside his mind right away. I mean, I say he was a creepy pervert, but no matter if he was gay, straight, or anything else, most older guys are a little bit creepy perverts yet.
At that point, they would have just called him eccentric.
Yes, he was a very eccentric. That's for sure. But yeah, the strip questionnaire was that was a fun scene. I mean, like, I don't know if fun's the right word for it, but you very much get inside his mind at the time, especially in the time of his life. He doesn't care about talking about his monsters. At that point, he was trying to get an attractive younger man to take his clothes off for him.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I mean, there's some troublesome things in this movie that, I mean, that again, you can say it was for the times of the 50s, but in my mind during that scene, I'm like, well, imagine just like having a straight director getting questioned like this and having a female reporter and having him playing strip questionnaire with her. I'm like, that wouldn't fly. So I applaud the film for throwing that out there, because again, it's not applauding him for doing that or saying, oh, this is a good thing that's happening. No, they're like, no, this is a bad thing no matter what
Yeah.
you're looking at here. Yeah, but then when Brendan Fraser is introduced, again, you think there is, maybe some sexual tension between, at least on James Whale's part, to uh, coerce the young man to take off his clothes and let him paint him like one of his
Schoolgirls. Oh my God, man, that is so wrong. That's so wrong. One of his French girls.
One of his French girls, schoolgirls. I mean, he would have liked that too. If Brendan Fraser dressed up like that. But yeah, Brendan Fraser in this movie, again, he's fantastic in this. He is going through his own things as well in this that we'll definitely have to touch on. Yeah, I the biggest thing that I take away from this movie is the camaraderie and the relationship between Ian McKellen and Brendan Fraser. They have fantastic chemistry in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just feel it coming off of them. You can tell, like,
Yeah,
it feels like
that was to say there's aspects of different parts of the movies where, between sympathy and anger and love and hate, that just depending on the aspect of what's going on in the film and whatnot, none of those feel forced.
Yes, every emotion is just super. It's just ever present in both of these characters. You never feel like they were reacting irrationally at any point, but there is points where they're the best friends in the world, or they're yelling at the top of their lungs at each other, or beating each other up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this feels like a very, very real relationship, even though it is very fictitious. Like I said, Clayton Boone is not a real character. He was made up for the novel that this movie was based off of. But yeah, just the chemistry between these two is just electric, to throw out a Frankenstein term.
My question, going on to the Frankenstein here, is one of the things that, and it wasn't until like there was a massive silhouette towards the end of Brendan Fraser, but I kept seeing it, and then once the silhouette at the end says, okay, they did this on purpose, but it took me for, one thing was the Brendan Fraser's hair, to the point where you knew that for the sake of the story and his relationship to Whale, was that he was the Frankenstein, that he was the guy that he was trying to befriend.
Yeah, I mean, so if
That
you look,
hair.
yeah, I'm like, okay, we're gonna get some sort of Frankenstein something out of this with Brendan Fraser's hair, and even Brendan Fraser's jawline and everything looks a bit
Mm-hmm.
like Karloff's. Yeah, that's again, with their relationship and how that even relates to Whale's work, especially Frankenstein being the most prominent movie in this that they focus on. It very much feels like a Dr. Frankenstein and the monster relationship between
Yes.
Brendan Fraser and Ian McKellen in this movie. Except not in the way that I would suppose you think, because again, we say Brendan Fraser looks like the monster, Karloff's monster, but in this, I see this a bit as McKellen's the monster in this scenario, and Brendan Fraser is the young, up and coming, bright hair or bright eyed man just entering the world, much like a Dr. Frankenstein was.
I guess I didn't see it that way, but you're also the Frankenstein connoisseur here at this point.
But again, I can see it the other way as well, because especially in the case of Bride of Frankenstein, there is a an eccentric, possibly gay character in that movie, Dr. Pretorius, who is Dr. Frankenstein's mentor, who very much resembles James Whale and Ian McKellen in his look and mannerisms. So again, that could be applied to this, but I think that's the beauty of this, is the way you look at it can be different than somebody else's. And I think that even it's very rhythmic to Frankenstein, because again, in pop culture, Frankenstein's the monster and we should all be scared of him. But if you watch those, you realize, no, he's more sympathetic than anyone else in those movies. And again, I think that very much applies here, because the way I saw it, I should probably explain myself how I was seeing James Whale a bit as the monster, because to the outside world, an old out gay director could be seen as, a forgotten relic of the past, something we should throw to the wayside, much like Frankenstein's monster. And in this case, McKellen, he's just trying to find a relationship and a friendship. He's not, at this point in his life, he's not necessarily looking for a relationship in the traditional sense of, in this case, finding another male partner. He's just trying to find a kinship that he has not had in a very long time. And very much so is ever present in Frankenstein's monster and Bride of Frankenstein. He meets this old hermit who's blind and doesn't care that the monster looks hideous. He just has now found a friend. And the back and forth between McKellen and Fraser in this movie is very much a mirror to the relationship between the monster and the blind man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's there's just so much subtext in this movie that I love. And McKellen, again, he within himself, I think he's finding that there's a monster, because I don't think it's a spoiler if I say this, but towards the end of the film, and I think it's pretty much set up throughout the movie, he's ready to die. He doesn't want to live anymore. And his relationship with Brendan Fraser has some twists and turns towards the end. That's one thing I don't think we need to bring up, because that's a little spoilery.
A little bit.
To what he ultimately wants out of Brendan Fraser. But yeah, I think that's just a very important thing to look at in this movie, is like the monster inside of you. And I think that's a very prominent thing in Whale's work as well, and seeing that in his life, and ultimately his demise at the end of his life as well. Is there any other? I mean, that it really focuses on those two characters. I mean, again, I think the maid is great. Hannah, I think she was really good in this movie. She gets a great scene with Brendan Fraser where they kind of figure out some more backstory between the two of them. But yeah, I mean, besides that, just a fan, I don't want to say a fan servicey moment, but a moment that got me a little giddy was seeing James Whale with his monsters again, which Jack Betts, the guy who plays Boris Karloff in this movie, looks extremely like Boris Karloff. It's
right.
Pretty great. Yeah, again, if you have not seen this movie, highly recommend. Yeah, do you have any other things you want to bring up with this movie?
No, I can't really say that I do. I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job of covering it without spoiling it. Granted, the movie is also 22 years old, so if we did spoil it, well, that's not our fault. But I do think that, again, the performances were definitely top notch. This, I like I said, for my sake of my aspect of it, maybe why I wouldn't maybe rate it as high as you is maybe again is I don't connect with it kind of on the same level you do, again, because I'm not as keen on the filmography that is Whale. And like I said, some of the stuff with the flashbacks, the way they were done, especially the war stuff, was just more of it. Just seemed very chaotic for me. But outside of that, I would say it definitely is one worth watching and worth recommending to anybody, especially if you're a fan of Brendan Fraser and especially Ian McKellen.
Yeah, I think this is one of McKellen's best roles he's ever had. This is, he's right
And
on
he's Magneto and Gandalf.
He's right on the cusp of playing his two most iconic characters. This is 1998. He's literally what,
Hmm.
2 years from X-Men, 3 years from Lord of the Rings. So he's right on the
Right.
cusp of that, and this hits at the right time. And
Exactly.
yeah, my final thoughts are I do agree with you. The war flashbacks are the weakest part of this movie. It is.
Hmm.
I don't want to say it's a crutch, but it's something that Condon relies on to help further the story forward. And I get the chaotic nature because it is just a man who has suffered a stroke and he's now flashing back to all these things, and they might not always happen at the best times for him. But I do think they are the weakest parts, especially, I mean, McKellen's not in them. So that, I don't think that helps at all. But yeah, again, my final thing I want to end with is the climax of this film inside of Whale's house, where he finally gives this proposition to Brendan Fraser's character, and how it's again. I feel this movie is just a mirror of Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein, because again, it's set during a rainstorm. There's thunder and lightning going off. The shots look like shots out of Frankenstein and Bride, and yeah, I again, and then I thought the final shot with Fraser is a little funny, but again, it fit with the rest of the movie.
Mm.
You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
I don't want
Yes.
to again. I don't want to spoil what he's doing, but it's
You don't
fun.
want to spoil. Yes.
All right, so that is Gods and Monsters 1998. It is available on Hulu and I believe Amazon Prime as well.
Yes, it is on Prime. I will say this much here. I was thinking, I booted up Hulu. It said, "Hey, you need to log in." I'm like, I'm too lazy for that today. Saw that it was on Amazon Prime. I will tell you this. I don't know if it's just because of it, my TV, whatever the case is. This movie looks like, for the sake of clarity and like, it legit looked like it should have been like shot 4K in like
Mhm.
1998. It was clean and gorgeous. So I would definitely recommend. I can't say for Hulu, for example, but at least
Hulu,
for
it looks great too.
on Amazon Prime, it was beautiful. So definitely there.
And that's what I guess I already said my final thoughts. But one other thing, cinematography in this movie is fantastic. It is a
Yes.
beautifully shot film.
That's where I would say is that is as chaotic as the war shots were that seemed to kind of take me out of it a little bit. They were beautifully shot.
Yeah. And so yes, Brian, I assume you recommend But Gods and Monsters.
I would recommend. I would certainly say is it might be one of those kind of movies that may or may not be for everyone and whatnot, but for the sake of performances, actor chemistry sort of thing, definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. Again, I think I said it quite a bit in this podcast. Highly recommend Gods and Monsters for me. And that rounds out our Pride miniseries for the month of June here, as we covered Perks of Being a Wallflower, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, Mysterious Skin, and finally Gods and Monsters. Brian, what was your favorite out of those four that we covered?
Well, for one, it's itch, not inch.
What did I say?
An
Itch?
angry inch.
Sorry, I've been trying. He might have had an angry itch too. So
um. Oh, what would be, the reason why I say it's kind of hard to give that a definitive answer is one thing, and this is just by happy accident, being the fact that we did not choose these movies. These movies were
mhm.
chosen for us. Is the fact that for the most part they were all different. Like there was not very much linear to the, for the sake of, we've got like Perks being your teen movie, um Mysterious Skins a little bit more of your very downer drama kind of thing, the musical that is Hedwig, this one which was more of like a semi
Mhm.
biographical. I cannot say words today.
Biographical, yes.
Thank you. You can't say itch.
Yeah,
Uh is I for the movies that we have talked about, I can't say one over the other because they are a good subsection of films to be able to say, hey, you need to experience all of them.
yeah. I think we had quite the great list of movies, and I'll echo everything that you said. I mean, we got a little flavor of almost every genre in this in a way, because you
And
get
we
to,
didn't even try.
no, this
Like I
was
said, that's what
happy
was this
accident.
was exactly, that was, hey, this is what you guys should do,
Yeah.
and perfect.
Yes, it was perfect. Next month, though, we again, I want to before we jump to next month, give a huge shout out to our guests for this month. Thank you guys all for choosing the topics that we got to cover. I believe for Brian and myself, these were all first time watches.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, Perks I know I had watched in high school, but I did not pay attention to. So it was technically a first time watch. But yeah, I mean, I loved all four movies that we got to cover for very very different reasons, and yeah, this is a lot of fun.
I would be completely agreeing to that.
Yeah, next let's announce next month's miniseries though,
Dun
because
dun
I'm
dun.
excited to talk about these. These are going to be a lot of fun too. I think these will be a little more in line with tonally. I think most of them will be. But since the 4th of July is coming up this upcoming weekend, happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th of July.
We are going to be covering. I don't even know what we're going to call this one. Independence movies? America movies?
America movies.
Rah, 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 America movies. So the first up, I'll just announce the whole month. Why not?
Why not? Let's go for it. And if anything changes, it changes,
It
right?
changes. So the first one we got coming up is the Mel Gibson film, The Patriot. So that'll be coming out right after the 4th of July, and I think that's a pretty fitting film since it is about the Revolutionary War. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this will be the first one. The one after that is Red.
This will be that'll be a first time watch for me. As sad as it is to say.
Yeah, I've seen I love The Patriot, so I can't wait to talk about it. The next one up, we have Red Dawn, starring Chris Hemsworth and Josh. Oh no, not that one. The 1980s Red Dawn. We will touch on the remake, I do believe, but
I was gonna say is I would be interested that if we had the time and ability, that if we did watch both of them, to kind of compare the two,
Yeah.
the likes and dislikes of both of them, because with Red Dawn we're talking two different versions of a story because of the remake being updated to current times.
yeah, I remember watching the remake in theaters, and we'll talk about that on that. But I plan on watching both just to compare the two.
Uh-huh.
After that, we had Born on the 4th of July, bringing in our Tom Cruise. You got to get
And
over Tom Cruise.
Oliver Stone.
And we're going to leave it off with the most America movie ever, Team America: World Police.
Yes.
We got to get our puppet fixed.
I'm so excited for that. I am. It's as corny, cheesy. What the hell are we getting ourselves into for this? Team America, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, my original pitch was for the next month to cover Trey Parker, Matt Stone movies, which yeah, I mean, by the end of this weekend, I'll have watched all of them because a one superhero movie just dropped on Netflix of theirs.
Did it finally?
Yes, and I watched the first half hour. I'm about a half hour into it, and oh boy.
I'm still kind of questioning because I'd be curious as to give you my DVD because it's the unrated edition.
It's NC-17 on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Which I was surprised by. So
a little bit. So that's probably the same version that I have. I'm semi impressed by that.
Anyway, that is our America movies coming in July.
Yes. And if you haven't heard the soundtrack for Team America, listen to the soundtrack.
It's the best.
It is one of the best.
All right, so that was our episode spotlighting Gods and Monsters. Again, go check that movie out on Hulu and Amazon Prime. And you can check us out on backlot605.com for our latest movie news, articles, reviews, and discussions on there. And check us out on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and YouTube. And while you're on those, give us a subscribe and a rating and review on that. That'll help us out quite a bit if you do that for us. It only takes a few minutes. And all you got to say is good podcast or bad podcast. So, any review helps us out. So, Brian,
preferably good.
We prefer good, but I mean, if we're bad, we're bad. That's all right.
Yeah.
Brian, where can the people find you online?
Right now, I mean, if you're going to see any sort of activity, you're going to find me on Letterboxd under LP Freak Forever. I've kind of gone dark a little bit on Instagram. I'm probably going to pick up on that here around 4th of July. That you can find me on Instagram under LP Freak. Should be getting back to that here, like I said, around 4th of July. May or may not end up with some not movie related stuff because, well, it's the 4th of July.
Yeah, and you can check me out. I'm just on the Letterboxd now. Casey Kelderman. You can find me there, reviewing
Yeah.
giving a short snippet of every movie I watch. It's more to keep track of what I've watched for myself.
I would second that. I would say if you're anybody who wants to be able to say, "Hey, what did I watch this year? Did I watch that? I don't remember if I watched that." If you use Letterboxd religiously like we do, it's a fantastic tool.
Mhm.
And it is a free service, but they do have a couple ways to be able to support the service and actually have some pro or Patreon. And I highly recommend doing that. It's really cheap for the year, and it definitely serves its purpose.
Yes, go use Letterboxd if you don't. Social
Yes.
media for movie nerds. That's what it is.
Go pro, Casey.
I don't know if I can do that. Anyway, that's been our talk on Gods and Monsters. Again, thank you all for listening, and we'll check you out next time on the backlot of South Dakota.
Peace out and whatnot.